Today's Palm Sunday. Anybody remember that? Yeah. Do you bring your palms?
What was that?
Wow, that was good. I've never even seen that before. Yeah, it's fantastic. Any announcements? Do we have any announcements? No announcements. Well then without any more, well there'll be a little bit more. But, so we have a special guest speaker today, who's here because I'm really bad sometimes and I can't figure anything out and think of anything, and so I always have to call him the second or third string. You know, can't throw home runs, or touchdowns all the time. You don't think you throw touchdowns, do you?
You do.
You do throw a touchdown.
You can throw a touchdown.
Okay, you can throw it to the guy and he catches it down into the infield.
Let's go with that.
Yeah. The outer field. The touchdown zone. I love this drum, makes so much noise. So, we are a special guest today. Some people have called the poor man's Bono. One of the top, well not top 10, but I think number 10 or 11 most influential person of the emergent church. Okay, he's at 11. And he was the number 2 most influential Irish emergent preacher until just 2 days ago, and you became number 1. Yeah, you moved up. Yes, I thought you would want to know that. So, so some people call Pete the future of the church. Some people call him the end of the church. I just call him collect. No, okay. Well, without any more awesome comedy, please welcome Peter Rollins.
Hey. So that Washington Times article really worked, I see.
Yeah.
Yeah, dial it back.
Getting your drum ready for your...
Oh wow. You're going to do a little bit of a drum solo with me? Thank you very much. That's okay. This is for some later on. I'm going to finish with a drum thing. It's going to be very moving. It'll be powerful. Yeah, I suppose so. This is Palm Sunday. I'm going to push this down a bit more. So I had a choice of whether to talk about Palm Sunday or April Fools. And it was a tough one, but I'm going to go with the April Fools, that other famous Christian holiday. Like as of an hour ago, I didn't even know I was speaking. Jay just gave me a call and said, "Do you want to say something?" So I think it is an April Fool joke because he promised to pay me. I've never seen him go for his wallet before. Yeah, but yeah, I guess being April Fools, I thought I would talk about the idea that we're all caught up in a type of April Fool's joke. So April Fool's kind of works like this. You try to get somebody to believe something that's kind of absurd, or you try and get them to do something that's kind of absurd. And the more absurd, the better, and the funnier it is. If I say, you know, that putting manure in your hair will make it grow, Jay? Yeah, really does work. You know, and he goes and does that, then it's an April Fool joke. So what I want to look at today is the idea that we're all caught up in that kind of absurd joke. And we're all part of it, and the people who are laughing at us are the gargoyles and the grotesques on the church. If you ever look up at these old churches, they're called grotesques. I call them gargoyles, but I've been told gargoyles are actually the things that are on water fountains. Those are gargoyles. That's what I was told. Yeah, somebody.
The cartoon gargoyles. They are.
Yeah. When I talk about grotesques, nobody knows what I mean. But yeah, so these little creatures that they laugh and they're mocking us. And I would argue they're mocking us, ironically, just outside of church. They're mocking us because we're caught up in a joke where we are holding on to something that is absurd, and we are engaged in a pile of practices that are absurd. And so what are they? Well, the first is that what you believe is right. Your cultural, religious and political views map reality. That after all of these thousands and thousands of years, you, right here, right now, got it right. Your views on marriage, your views on the divine, your views on political structures, your views on cultural activities, you're right. And if someone disagrees with you, well, they must be wrong, right?
Yes.
And the second thing, so in April Fools there's two. There's you either believe something that's absurd and or you do something that's absurd. The second thing I want to argue is that we believe that there's stuff that will make us happy and fulfilled and satisfied. And we do lots of things in order to get it. It might be to look a certain way, to have a certain amount of money, to have a certain amount of fame, to get married, to get divorced, whatever it is, that there's something that will make us satisfied, whole and complete. And what I want to kind of postulate today is these are absurd. This is a big April Fool joke and we've fallen for it. We think we're right, we think there's something that will make us satisfied, and we think God is the thing that guarantees that we're right and guarantees that we can be satisfied and we can be happy. And we so want to hold on to this idea that we won't let go of it. Just as whenever in an April Fool joke, it's awful when you realise that you got kind of caught up in it and you fell for it. I'm going to say it even more so when we begin to question ourselves and our views and our beliefs. It's terrifying and we want to fight it with all we've got. We want to read more Josh McDowell apologetics books, or we want to surround ourselves with people who believe the same thing as us. We want to go every week to some group that will tell us that we're right. We'll do anything we can to kind of hold on to the sense of belief and purpose and significance that we feel we have. Because it's terrifying to open ourselves up to the possibility that actually we're not really sure what's going on. And funnily enough, this isn't philosophy. Some people say, postmodern philosophy is where you get this deconstruction stuff. But deconstructionists will say, no, the best form of deconstruction isn't philosophy, it's history. So take, for example, your view on marriage. Say you think that the view of marriage that you have now is the way it is. That's what God thinks, so that's what reason agrees with. You don't have to do philosophy to begin to deconstruct that. All you need to do is look at history and look at how the idea has changed and transformed over time. And as you learn more about the history and the past, it becomes more and more difficult for you to hold on to what you currently believe is absolute and right. And the same goes for so many views. A little bit of history gets us to begin to deconstruct, not philosophy. Philosophy is kind of a bit rubbish at it, but history is very, very good at it. There's a story which I like. It's about this guy. He's on a desert island. And he's been there for 10 years. He was washed ashore whenever the ship sank. And he's been completely alone all that time. Eventually, he lights fires every week and tries to tell people that he's there. This plane's kind of going overhead one time, sees the fire, lands, and kind of basically says, okay, we'll free you and jump in our plane and come back home. And he says, yeah, okay, but first of all, do you want me to show you around the island? They go, yeah, okay, I'll show you around the island. And so he brings them to this clearing and he shows them 3 buildings. And he shows them the first building and he says, this is my home. This is where I've lived for the last 10 years of my life. And they go, oh, very nice, very nice. What's the building beside it? And he goes, oh yeah, that's my church. That's the building where I would go every week to pray. And go, very good. And what's the building beside that? And the guy goes, oh, he says, I don't want to talk about that. He says, no, don't ask me, don't ask me. What is it? What is it? He says, well, he says, that's a church I used to go to. Don't talk to me, right? But what I love about that is there's a sense in which, we always want to place the uncertainty and the difficulties behind us somewhere else. So, for example, whenever new churches begin, you always it's the last place you were at which was wrong. They had the wrong beliefs, they had the wrong ideas, they were the rubbish ones, and now we're going to do something new. We're going to create a new Eden, a new something. And so in that story, the fact is, because he can't do that, he has to externalise it into his past. That there's something conflictual about our being. We're riven with uncertainties and unknowing and questions. But what we want to do is avoid them at all costs. Of course we do. It's horrible. To look into the void, to look into unknowing and uncertainty is terrifying. And so we want to externalize that conflict and place it somewhere else, somewhere away from us. The community beside us, the community we used to go to, and try to create something new and beautiful. But of course we bring that conflict with us. And so if we try to set up a new community, we'll just end up bringing to the surface the same conflicts and difficulties as before. But we're terrified of looking at that and embracing it. The second thing I mentioned was, so the first is unknowing, and the idea of questioning your beliefs, your cultural, your religious and your political beliefs. It's such a difficult thing to do. And yet deep down we kind of know that we probably haven't got it all right. Deep down, somewhere late at night, we're all like, Winnie the Pooh, and the first chapter, it says, here's Winnie the Pooh coming downstairs now, bump, bump, bump on the back of his head behind Christopher Robin. It is as far as he knows the only way of coming downstairs, but sometimes he wonders if perhaps there is a better way, if only he could stop bumping long enough to think of it. And there's this image of, Winnie the Pooh being dragged down these stairs behind Christopher Robin, and he's hitting his head, And there's a sense in which, of course, that's an analogy of how we all feel. Sometimes late at night, we wonder if we really have it all right. We wonder if perhaps we're just bumping our heads down this cosmic staircase, and there might be a better way of doing it if only we could stop long enough to think of it. And of course we can't stop long enough, we're always on the move, The second is the idea that if we do something, it will make us happy and satisfied. Now, I'm not talking about basic happiness. Of course there's things you can do that will make you a bit happier. I'm talking about stuff that you feel will somehow make your life complete, somehow make you whole, somehow fill that gap in your being. And there's three basic problems with that idea. First is we never seem to be able to get it. Now, that's something I've talked about at length other places, and even here maybe, so I won't go into detail about that, but every time you think you get what will make you happy, whether it's $10 million or that woman, that man, that job, whatever it is, it ends up kind of being nothing. That it was beautiful until you got it, and then you realised even if it's good, it doesn't make you whole and make you complete. The second thing is, not only do you seem not able to get what it is that will make you happy, and by the way, you see this in church circles, these altar calls where someone says, come to the front and you'll be forgiven and life will be better and you'll be whole and God's just opening his arms to you, and you go up to the front and you accept it, and of course nothing much happens. For a few weeks or for a few months it might be kind of cool, but it's like a friend of mine was telling me recently that he used to go to camp, and one of the things they would do late at night is they'd sit around the campfire, and the guy had, I think it was like some doll or something weird, and it had like a hole cut into it in the shape of a cross, and he would talk to the young people about how you can't fit other things into it, and then he brings out a cross, and of course the cross fits in, and it's like, there you go, this is Christianity. You have this gap in your soul, and the cross fits the gap, and you're made whole and complete. And he was telling me about it, he says, yeah, we would all accept Jesus, and he said, and then later at night we'd all be trying to get into the girls' camp, right? Which is kind of shows you it doesn't really make you whole and complete, If you were, you wouldn't be trying to break into the girls' camp after everything was over. So in the same way, you come to the front and you think it's all going to be complete and good, and it isn't. And so what happens is the church just acts like any good company, because all companies are offering wholeness and completeness. Buy this product, look this way, wear this thing, and you'll be happy. Brush your teeth with this product. And the church comes along and it just offers its product. And of course, in the same way that other companies go, well, get the next upgrade. You've got to supplement, get the next car, the next thing. The church goes, oh, well, you're not using it right, you've got to pray more. Go to more worship meetings, buy these books, go to hear this next new speaker. They have to supplement it with something else, because you're sitting there going, well, there must be something more. And so we kind of get ourselves caught up in that. But the second thing is, not only do we always seem to miss that thing which will make us whole and complete, we imagine that other people have it. The example I often use is, if you're going out with somebody and you break up with them, and you're at home collecting urine, and you're imagining they're out partying, and having a great old time. You can't help but imagine that the other is having the pleasure that you don't have, and you hate them for it. You hate them. That's why Oscar Wilde says, "Every time a friend succeeds, a part of me dies." Right? This is why I hate Roald Bell. It's like, ooh, what are your book sales? Oh, wow. Oh, Time Magazine. Oh, very good. Oh, you're making a Hollywood TV series. Oh, these are tears of joy. My book sales. Oh, almost double figures. Oh, any day now, Rob. Any day now, double figures. What happens is the other has the pleasure that you can't have, and it can be very destructive. Think about it. And in fact, we hate it so much that we'll do anything to steal the other person's happiness. In the story of Solomon, two women come to Solomon, and one of the women says, "I have a child, and I wake up in the morning, my child is gone, and I find that my little boy is in her cot. Her child died the other day, and she hid the corpse and took my child and says it's hers." And the other woman says, "This is rubbish, this is my child." And Solomon says, "Okay, bring me a sword, and I'll cut the child in half and give each woman half." And of course we know what happens. One of the women says, "No, give the child to her." And then he knows who the mother is. So the interesting thing about the story is it kind of seems absurd. Because why would the other woman not say anything? Why would the other woman want a child to die? Sounds ridiculous. And yet sometimes we so hate the pleasure of the other. So she's had this child's dead. She's robbed, she feels, of everything that can make her whole and complete. Her neighbour has what she imagines is the thing that will make her complete. And we can so hate the other because they have the happiness that we think we should have, or that we think we can't have, that we would even want the death of a child. So that's the second thing. And the third is, third's kind of interesting because it's kind of a bit more complicated. The third is we pretend that we're happy. You see this, if someone's going out with a guy who has a very high prestige, but the relationship's really rubbish. But say it's a girl who's getting this, she's going out with this guy, he's got a really, really good reputation, he's very, very powerful. Well, she can get the pleasure of people thinking that she's happy, right? You see this on Facebook all the time. People get pictures of themselves looking happy. Well, everyone does it. As soon as you put a camera in someone's face, no matter how unhappy they look, they put a smile on, But if you want to evoke someone's desire, often it's very difficult for us to go out and have a good time. What we have to do is we have to, in a sense, pretend that we're having a good time. Get some pictures of us having a good time so that other people think we're having a good time, and then that enables us to have a good time. Or you say a guy's, you Americans, you do this, send these letters once a year about how your kids, and I don't think many of you got kids, but how your kids are like amazing and getting straight A's and are going to be the next president and all of this kind of stuff. And it's kind of like basically, look at how great my family is, you bastards, right? Okay, and everyone's, oh, look, I'm so happy for you, your kids are so beautiful, and I hate you, right? So this interesting thing goes on where even if your relationships and your family's falling apart, what you can do is by projecting out an image of you having this happiness and this beauty, you can, in a sense, get somewhat we call secondary satisfaction. Not the satisfaction of directly enjoying your life, but the secondary satisfaction of making people think that you're enjoying your life, which isn't as good as enjoying your life, but it's better than nothing. Right? There's a story from Ireland which I love, which is this Texan, very wealthy, made his money in oil. He wants to go to Ireland to, find his ancestors, as you often do here. He goes over to Ireland. He goes to this little place down in South Galway, and he finds out that he's got some relatives there still. So he goes to this little farm, little tiny, tiny farm. He knocks on the door, and after a few minutes, this guy comes out. The big Texan with the big Texan hat says, My great-great-grandfather left these shores, you know, hundreds of years ago. And he landed in Texas. Can you land in Texas? You probably have to walk a lot. But yeah, landed somewhere else and then walked to Texas. And then made a fortune in oil. And he says, I've come to retrace my steps. And so this little guy is called Seamus, right? So Seamus goes, oh, very good, come on in, have a cup of tea, right? So he goes in, Seamus makes him a wee cup of tea, and it's all lovely. And then the Texan says, well, are you going to show me around? So Seamus says, okay, come on. And so they get up and they go out, and Seamus says, listen, you see that old tractor there, that old rusty tractor? He says, that's all my land. And he says, you see that old tree stump? That tree stump there, that's all mine. And that old rickety fence, just over there, just over that, beside that rock, that wee rickety fence, that's all my property, right to this house behind me. It's all mine. So the Texan laughs and he says, listen, he says, I can get into my car at 9 o'clock in the morning and I can drive all day north. At the end of the day, I still haven't got to the border of my property. He says, I can drive all day west, or I could drive all day east. By the end of the day, I still wouldn't see the fence that borders my property. And he says, and I could drive all day south, and I still wouldn't get to the ends of my land. And Seamus nods and goes, he says, I know how you feel, he says. I used to have a car like that as well. What's interesting, because I think this holds the secret. This story holds the secret. See, what the Texan's doing is the Texan is saying, I have the thing that makes me happy, that can make you whole and complete. I've got all this land, I've got all this property, look how amazing I am, right? So that's the game he's playing, right? That's the game we all play at times. There's a certain happiness to that. And that can kind of annoy us whenever people play that game. I'm trying to think of concrete examples. There's loads of examples. But interestingly, Seamus isn't fazed at all. Seamus doesn't see what the guy is playing. He doesn't see the game. He doesn't believe it, right? By the way, if you go to a bar any night of the week, you'll see this played out. You know, a guy, stereotypically, a guy will put his keys on the bar or something to show what car he drives, or whatever. And he'll talk about the work he does and maybe how many people work under him. So what he's doing is he's saying, look at the thing that I've got that makes my life meaningful, right? So he's playing a game, pretending he's got something that makes him satisfied, whole and complete. And in that very, very stereotypical game, the woman will often be smiling a lot, laughing, going along, not saying the same things, but being, in a sense, the sight of pleasure. As if kind of like, so in other words, the guy's saying, I have the thing which will make me happy, and the woman's saying, I am the thing that makes me happy. So that's why you see them smiling more and laughing more. So it's all lies. The guy doesn't have the thing that will make him happy, the woman is not the sight of her own happiness and all this. So we're playing these games, they're fascinating little games. But you can reverse the rules and all of that. I'm just using a very stereotypical example. But Seamus doesn't see this. All he sees is brokenness. Yeah, I used to have a car like that as well. Which is like, obviously you couldn't be showing off that you have the thing that will make you whole and make you complete. Because nobody does. We're all broken. We all have difficulties. And the interesting thing about that is, certainty, the idea that we have it all, we have the answer, and the idea that there's something that will make us happy, they separate us one from another. They create conflict. Create that difference. But when you embrace a certain unknowing, and when you embrace a certain reality of brokenness, the fact that, for example, that Rob Bell isn't any happier, yes he is, surfing in the East West Coast, whatever it is, you tell and you go like, no, he's just struggling with as many things as everybody else. Suddenly it's like, oh, well, it's easier because I'm struggling as well. We're not playing this game anymore. What, you're struggling with stuff, and you've got problems with friends and sickness and all of this, and so have I. It's actually in the place when we acknowledge our brokenness and draw it out of the other by what Seamus does, by being brave enough to just acknowledge it. That can actually bring deep unity. And that's what I would argue is the message of the crucifixion, the message of Christianity. And I don't know if I'm going to have enough. This is, by the way, this is all about my new book, because if you buy my new book, you will be satisfied, you will be whole, and you will have the right answers, okay? Sometimes it works. But yeah, this is, the new book is called Breaking Our Addiction to Certainty and Satisfaction. Because these, I think, are two addictions that we have. But for me, the crucifixion, very briefly, there's two elements. One is the crucifixion. At the time, this is no kind of me extrapolating some weird philosophy onto the cross. If you were there at the time, the crucifixion meant the absolute curse. It meant you were outside of the political and the religious system. It meant you were crucified outside the city naked. You were the complete outsider, stripped of everything. You had no identity, nothing, everything was stripped of you. So, to participate in the crucifixion, to experience the crucifixion in your own life, I would argue, is simply the experience, this is one part of it, the experience of losing all the things that give you identity. Now for Paul, there were 6, Jew, Gentile, slave, free, male, female. Those were the 6 tribal identities of the day. Today we've got different ones. But you experience the loss of those. Doesn't mean you stop kind of using them, but you suddenly start realizing that these are temporary shelters. That actually, you don't have it all pinned down. That you don't have all the answers. That there is this profound unknowing. And I would argue that by experiencing that, you don't walk away from Christ. I was in this radio interview, and the guy read this letter from a Christian youth pastor who was in the church for years, and then he started doubting the Bible. He started asking questions about God, and he listed all of this stuff, and then he left the church. And the interviewer was going, what do you think of this? What would you say to this guy? And I just find it's like, I think everything he said is brilliant. I think the only problem is that's the very point when you should join the church, not the point when you should leave it. The point when you're asking these questions and wrestling and thinking. There's that beautiful story of the young guy who he comes to this old rabbi and says, Rabbi, I've studied philosophy, I've studied logic, I've studied symbolic logic, Aristotelian logic, I've studied all of that. And now I want to know the logic of God. And the old rabbi says, you're too young, come back to me in 10 years. The young guy says, no, I'm ready for what you have. I'm ready. You're not ready, well, test me. So the old rabbi says, okay, tell me. 2 guys come down a chimney, and at the bottom, one has soot on their face and one doesn't. Tell me, who washes their face? And the young guy says, well, the guy with soot in his face. The old rabbi says, don't be stupid, of course not. It's the guy without the soot on his face. Why? Well, because he sees that his friend has soot on his face, therefore he thinks I must have soot on my face, and so he washes his face. And the young guy goes, oh yeah, very good. Oh, sorry. He says, well, test me again. And he goes, okay, I'll ask you a different question. 2 guys come down a chimney, and at the bottom one has soot in their face and one doesn't. Tell me, who washes their face? The young guy says, the guy without the soot in his face, because, stop trying to be clever. Stop trying to be smart. Of course not. The guy with the soot on his face, he feels it in his eyes, he tastes it in his mouth, he sees it on his hands, he washes his face. And the young guy's confused now. He says, just ask me one more question. And the rabbi says, okay, a different question. One more. 2 guys come down the chimney. And at the bottom, one has soot in their face and one doesn't. Tell me, who washes their face? The young guy goes, it wasn't my first answer, but for different reasons. And the rabbi says, of course not. Go away. They both wash their face. How can you not come down a chimney and not think you've got soot on your face? Come back to me in 10 years. Now, what is this parable about? Well, the idea within this tradition, within Judaism, is the very first thing you have to give up is this idea that you've got the single answer. That's the first thing. This is a discussion, an ongoing debate, an ongoing wrestling and fighting and back and forth and rethinking and reimagining. And that doesn't stop at the door. That's the very opening. That's the very beginning. That's the place where it starts. But the only way you can get there is when you're able to let go. And that's why Heidegger says that, people think students are there to learn and teachers are there to teach. No, of course not. Students know everything. You ever taught students? Oh my goodness, first year students know everything. It's the lecturers who don't know anything. And they're the ones who are trying to teach that. Get you to open up. Get you to begin to take that really interesting journey, but you have to let go. The second thing about the crucifixion, if I can kind of say this quickly, is that I would argue that we think we're separated from that thing which will make us happy, whole and complete. That thing that will fill the gap in our being. And in the crucifixion you have this temple curtain torn in half, which is basically behind that is the divine, the what which will satisfy us and make us whole. And when the temple curtain's ripped, that's exposed. There's nothing there. God is not this thing back there that will make you happy and complete. It is finished. That idea of something out there that if only you could get is gone. And what you find is something different. God is in the midst, where you give water to those who are thirsty, clothes to those who are naked, where you visit those who are in prison, where you look to your right and to your left. That's where God is, not in the escape from the world, not in the escape from our brokenness, but in the very midst of it. Faith is not the running away from our uncertainty, unknowing, our dissatisfaction. Faith is flamed in the midst of that. That is where it begins. That is where, and that's what Bonhoeffer meant when he said, to live as though God is not given, which is to live as though God is not given is the thing that will make us happy, is to live fully before God and with God, to fully embrace the human situation. So, what I want to argue is this is very different from what, of course, people traditionally think of Christianity, because sadly Christianity has become just another product in the vending machine. Christianity promises certainty and satisfaction. We'll tell you what to believe. Don't think about it too much. Give you the answers. And you can be satisfied, whole and complete. Just keep on coming to the church. Just keep on singing the songs and doing the thing and you'll be whole and complete. What I'm trying to argue is actually we've lost this subversive, radical nature of the crucifixion, which is embracing our unknowing, embracing our dissatisfaction, of saying the good news is we don't know and life is crap. Amen. That's the good news. And that doesn't sound very good at first. It doesn't sound like very good news. So I'm not, that's my altar call. Come to the front, life is shit and you have no idea what's going on. Come to the front if you want to accept that. But that's the key. The good news isn't that. The good news is accepting that. That's my point. In other words, if you try to embrace the idea you can be happy and fulfilled, you'll become more and more unhappy and unfulfilled. It will break you apart from other people. It will fester in your soul and it will poison you. If you try to hold on to certainty and think you've got the right answers and fill your mind with apologetics and all of that, the uncertainty will come out in different ways. In arguments, in vicious attacks of those who disagree with you, in self-harm and overeating, in whatever number of ways, it always comes out. What we repress by day will haunt us by night. Then the opposite of that is, okay, life is rubbish and all of that, and that's really depressing. But the good bit is this. The good news is by fully accepting the difficulties of existence, by being able to talk about it, sing about it, laugh about it, we rob it of its sting. The church should be like the professional mourners, the comedians and the singer-songwriters of today. That's what the church should be. Often, sadly, the church is like the crack house, right? If you take drugs because they help numb your suffering. Brilliant. If you've gone through a breakup, if you've gone through something difficult, some abuse, taking drugs is fantastic. It'll make you feel great for a few hours or for a few days. But the problem is the next day you feel terrible, so you have to go out and do it again, right? That's the problem with drugs. It's a solution to a problem. It's not a problem, it's the solution to a problem. But it's a solution that is partial. It doesn't actually fix things. Now, the church can often be like a crack house. The ministers are like the drug dealers, because what they're doing is giving you music that makes you feel amazing. These sermons that make you feel certain, these songs that make you feel triumphalist, and everything's great, right? But just like going out on a drug and drink binge, the next day you've got like a hangover. And you've got to go back again and again. That's why people go back to church all the time. Why would you bother? You become addicted to it. It becomes an addictive substance that helps you not face the difficulties and the brokenness in your life. But what I'm arguing here is professional mourners, people used to be paid to cry at funerals. And for us that can sound really weird. You get to pay someone to cry at a funeral. But what happened is you were so in pain. Okay, so in pain. But someone else was crying, and you watched them cry. And as you watched them cry, you began to get into contact with your own mourning, with your own tears. You may not cry yourself, but in watching them cry, you start to feel yourself, and you start to feel your emotions, but in a way that you can handle. In a way, because without that, you might just break down, you might just repress, you might have a heart attack, whatever, but they help you access your own suffering. And so you start to begin to work it through. And that's why in many ways the singer-songwriters of today are the professional mourners of yesterday. They're the ones who cry and weep, as Kierkegaard says. But as we listen to them sing about suffering and brokenness and love and lost love and life, as we listen to that, we begin to touch those parts of ourselves that we otherwise might not be able to look at or experience. And so we begin to do the act of mourning. And finally, comedians, the kind of comedians who are able to talk about all the embarrassing and traumatic things that have happened to them, right? And we go and we're all laughing with them. They're able to talk about all of those difficult things. And that means they're not oppressed by them, it means they're freed from them. When you're not able to talk about the stuff that hurts you, you're not free from it, you're most enslaved by it. If you imagine a family sitting around a table and someone's died, and nobody talks about it, they're not free from the suffering. Every week when they get together and don't mention John who died, but then one person says, do you remember him? I miss him. And someone else says, oh, I've got a funny story to share. And someone cries and someone else laughs. And as they're able to talk about it, it doesn't make things better, as in it doesn't change anything in reality, but actually nothing remains the same. Everything is changed. And that comes to the surface. What I want to argue is this. There's this April Fool's joke, and we're all part of it. And the gargoyles and grotesques are laughing at us. They're laughing at us because we're the brunt of it. We think we can be happy and we can be satisfied and that God's going to make all of that happen, and we hold on to it. But the crucifixion, Christianity at its best, is calling us to see the joke for what it is. Is calling us to see the April Fool's joke and let it go. And as soon as you see the joke, you're not the brunt of it anymore. You accept it and go, oh yeah, I don't believe it. An April Fool's joke works because you don't believe it. You think manure will make your hair grow back, and that's what's funny. But if you turn to me and go, that's rubbish, of course it doesn't. The joke doesn't work, right? In Christianity, the church should be the place where we call it out. You can't be happy. We don't have the answers. We're all kind of broken. But the good news is this. We're able to fully acknowledge it, fully embrace it. We're able to talk about it, talk about our difficulties, talk about our lives, share our brokenness together, find community there. And I would argue that one view of God dies. God is an idol. An idol is that which promises you that things will be fine, that things will be good. The problem with an idol is this. The idol exists and is beautiful and is wonderful until you get it. And then you realise it doesn't exist. Say a certain amount of money. This is just a certain amount of money. The idol, the thing that it promised, it doesn't exist. It's not beautiful, it's not great. So that view of God dies. But a different view of God arises, which is God is found in the very act of just embracing and loving one another, of loving the world, fully embracing the world. The funny thing about that is love does not really exist. It calls everything into existence. If I try to look at love or objectify love, I find nothing. Whenever you do love, you find love. Love is not beautiful. Love says, look at that person in front of you. They are beautiful. They are wonderful. They are sublime. And yet the opposite thing to the idol is, when you let go and you just love, it feels like it's the only thing that exists. It feels like the most beautiful thing that could ever be. So the idol, it promises so much when it's far away and gives you so little. And love promises so little until we just engage in it and try to act within it. And then we find that it gives us so much. So, the story is, it's April Fools. You've got a choice. Continue to be the brunt of the joke, or let's be a community where we get it. Who are you?
Thank you, sir. Figured. No one's gonna make a noise. I'll just tell you what I thought of it. You're a small man. That was my April Fool's joke to all of you. I will have the answer next week, though, for you. We're going to take an offering in Pete's hat, and twofold. This is how we pay our rent here, and it is also how we make all the other ends meet. And we're also going to be helping Pete out a little bit today, so reach extra deep down in your pockets. But I'd rather have you than your money. But this is what happens when you have a nonprofit. You have to ask. So that's me asking, and I don't have to take off my hat. All right, I'm going to pray. If you want to pray, you don't have to pray. Is that funny? Did you guys notice that the picture they used in the Wall Street Journal was us praying? They're like, look at how spiritual they all are. There's either going to be this or us praying. And half of us weren't praying. I looked at the pictures. And I want some of you guys to stay afterwards. I need to have a conversation with you. Okay. Lord, we don't know what the answer is. Sometimes we don't even know if you're there. But whatever it is we're saying or talking to, or who we're talking to, Lord, thank you for the uncertainty, and thank you for the honest, being able to be honest with ourselves in this life of not having answers. Amen. Talk to each other and get out there so we can let the open micers get in here. But please talk to each other, and if this is your first time, please say hello. If it's not your first time, you can say hello as well. That's all right. And thank you.